A feared mafia boss takes a shortcut through a dark alley to avoid police surveillance, but instead, he discovers a dying female cop gasping for air, her uniform soaked in blood. She's been shot by someone she trusted. Calvin Brown has one rule: never get involved with cops. But when she whispers the name of her attacker, everything changes. What he does next sends shockwaves through the entire police force and exposes a conspiracy so deep it tears the city apart. If you love stories about mafia bosses, betrayal, and unlikely alliances, hit that subscribe button and turn on notifications. You won't believe how this ends. Let's dive in. Calvin Brown didn't believe in fate. He believed in control, strategy, calculated risks. That's how he'd survived 15 years running the most powerful criminal organization in the city without spending a single night in jail. But tonight, fate had other plans. Calvin adjusted his leather jacket and turned down a narrow alley, a shortcut he'd used 100 times before. The main streets were crawling with patrol cars tonight. Some politician's fundraiser meant extra security, and Calvin had no interest in being seen. The alley was dark, lit only by a single flickering streetlight halfway down. His footsteps echoed off the brick walls as he moved quickly, hands in his pockets, eyes scanning for movement. That's when he heard it. A faint, wet gasp. Calvin froze. He wasn't a good Samaritan. He didn't stop for strangers. But something about that sound, desperate, fading, made him pause. Against every instinct, he turned toward the noise. Slumped against the alley wall, barely visible in the shadows, was a woman. Blood pooled beneath her. Calvin's jaw tightened. Not my problem, he thought. He started to turn away, but then the streetlight flickered, illuminating her face, and he saw the badge clipped to her belt. A cop. His first instinct was to run. Cops meant trouble. Cops meant questions. Cops meant risk. But then she moved. Her hand trembled as she reached toward him, and her voice came out in a broken whisper. "Please." Calvin's eyes narrowed. He should walk away. He had to walk away. But then she said something that changed everything. "Reed, Marcus Reed. He did this." Calvin's blood went cold. Marcus Reed. He knew that name. Detective Marcus Reed. I've... One of the dirty cops on Calvin's payroll. One of the officers who'd been taking protection money for years. What the hell is going on? The woman's head lolled to the side. She was losing too much blood. She had minutes, maybe less. Calvin cursed under his breath. He pulled out his phone and dialed. "Lo, I need a pickup, now. Back alley off 7th and Monroe, and get Dr. Chen ready. It's bad." "Boss, what?" "Just do it." Calvin crouched beside the woman. Her eyes fluttered open, hazel, sharp even through the pain. "Who are you?" she breathed. "Someone who's about to regret this," Calvin muttered. He pressed his hand against the gunshot wound in her side. She winced, but didn't scream. Tough. Cops were trained for pain, but this was different. This was betrayal. "Stay with me," Calvin said, surprising himself with the urgency in his voice. "Help's coming." "Why?" she gasped. "Why are you helping me?" Calvin didn't answer. He didn't have an answer. 2 minutes later, a black SUV screeched to a halt at the alley entrance. Lorenzo Vasquez, Lo, jumped out, eyes wide when he saw the scene. "Boss, is that?" "A cop." "Yeah, don't ask questions. Just help me get her in the car." Lo hesitated for half a second, then nodded. Together, they lifted her carefully into the back seat. As the SUV pulled away, Calvin glanced back at the pool of blood on the pavement. What the hell did I just do? But the real question is, why would Detective Marcus Reed try to kill his own partner? And what does Calvin Brown have to do with it? Keep watching, because the answers will blow your mind. The SUV tore through the city streets, weaving through traffic with practiced precision. Calvin sat in the back seat beside the unconscious detective, his hand still pressed against her wound. Lo glanced in the rearview mirror. "Boss, you know this is insane, right? She's a cop." "I know what she is," Calvin snapped. "Then why—" "She said Marcus Reed did this." Lo's hands tightened on the steering wheel. "Reed? Our Reed?" "That's what she said." Lo let out a low whistle. "That's complicated." "Yeah, no kidding." The safe house was a converted warehouse on the industrial edge of the city, off the grid, untraceable. Calvin had bought it 5 years ago under a shell company. It served as everything: storage, hideout, emergency medical facility. Dr. Raymond Chen was already waiting when they arrived. A former trauma surgeon who'd lost his license after getting caught stealing painkillers, Chen now worked exclusively for Calvin. He was brilliant, discreet, and asked no questions. "Gunshot wounds," Calvin said as they carried the woman inside. "2, one in the side, one in the shoulder. She's lost a lot of blood." Chen's face was grim as he examined her. "Get her on the table. Now." For the next 3 hours, Calvin paced the warehouse floor while Chen worked. Lo sat nearby, cleaning his gun, a nervous habit. "You think she'll make it?" Lo asked. "Chen's the best. That's not what I asked." Calvin didn't answer. Finally, Chen emerged, pulling off blood-stained gloves. "She'll live," he said. But it was close. Another 10 minutes, and we wouldn't be having this conversation. Calvin felt something strange. Relief. When will she wake up? Could be hours. Could be tomorrow. She lost a lot of blood. Her body needs time. Calvin nodded. "Keep her monitored. I want to know the second she's conscious." Chen raised an eyebrow. "You planning to interrogate her?" "I'm planning to get answers." Tamara Kelly woke to the smell of antiseptic and the steady beep of a heart monitor. Her eyes snapped open. Unfamiliar ceiling. Unfamiliar room. Where am I? She tried to sit up and gasped as pain shot through her side and shoulder. "Easy." A male voice, calm, authoritative. "You've been shot. Twice. You're lucky to be alive." Tamara's head turned toward the voice, and her blood ran cold. Standing beside her was a man she recognized instantly. Not from her cases, not from arrest records, from surveillance photos. Calvin Brown, the city's most wanted mafia boss. "You," she breathed, her hand instinctively reaching for her gun, which wasn't there. Calvin raised his hands slightly, a gesture of peace. "Relax, detective. If I wanted you dead, you'd already be dead." "Where am I?" Her voice was hoarse. "Somewhere safe." "Safe?" She let out a bitter laugh. "I'm in a room with a criminal. That's the opposite of safe." Calvin's expression didn't change. "You were dying in an alley. I saved your life." "Why?" "Good question. I'm still asking myself that." Tamara's mind raced. Marcus, the betrayal, the ambush. "How long have I been out?" 18 hours. She cursed under her breath. 18 hours. Marcus would have already covered his tracks. He'd spin a story, say she went rogue, got herself killed. The evidence she'd collected. My phone, she said suddenly. Where's my phone? Calvin gestured to a nearby table. Her phone, wallet, and badge sat there, untouched. We didn't go through your things, Calvin said. Though I'm guessing there's something on that phone you don't want Marcus Reed to get his hands on. Tamara's eyes snapped to his. How do you know Marcus did this? You told me in the alley, right before you passed out. She remembered now the pain, the darkness, the stranger who stopped. Why would you help me? She asked again, softer this time. You're a criminal. I'm a cop. We're enemies. Calvin was quiet for a long moment. My sister was a cop, he said finally. Patrol officer, 8 years on the force. She died responding to a domestic violence call. The call was fake, set up by drug dealers she was investigating. Backup never came. The officers who were supposed to cover her were on the dealer's payroll. Tamara's breath caught. She bled out on someone's front lawn, Calvin continued, his voice hard. Alone. Because the people who were supposed to protect her sold her out for cash. I'm sorry, Tamara whispered. I don't want your pity, detective. I'm telling you this so you understand. I know what it's like to be betrayed by the people you trust. And when you said Marcus Reed's name, I had to know why. Tamara swallowed. Marcus and 5 other officers tried to kill me because I've been investigating corruption in the department. I have evidence, recordings, financial records, witness statements. I was going to turn it all over to internal affairs. Calvin's eyes sharpened. What kind of corruption? Officers taking bribes, protecting criminal operations, evidence tampering, and, she hesitated, and? Protection money. Officers getting paid to look the other way. Calvin's jaw tightened. Who's paying them? Tamara met his gaze. You are! Silence filled the room. Calvin laughed, a short, bitter sound. Of course I am. You didn't know? I knew I was paying cops. I didn't know which ones. That's how it works. Intermediaries, layers. I give cash to one guy, he distributes it. Clean hands. Not anymore, Tamara said. Because the officers you've been paying? They're the same ones trying to kill me. Calvin stared at her. So we're both targets now. Looks like it. Then I guess we have a common enemy. Tamara shook her head. I'm not teaming up with a mafia boss. You don't have a choice, detective. The second you walk out of here, Marcus Reed will find you. And next time, you won't survive. I'll go to my captain. And say what? That your partner tried to kill you? You have evidence? You think Captain Harper's going to believe you over Marcus? He's been on the force for 12 years. You've been there for 5. He's got friends, allies, leverage. You've got a bullet wound and a story. Tamara clenched her fists, hating that he was right. So what do you suggest? She asked. Calvin leaned forward. We expose them. Together. Can a cop really trust a criminal? And what happens when Marcus Reed realizes Tamara is still alive? Stay with me. The next chapter is where things get really dangerous. Tamara stared at Calvin like he'd lost his mind. You want me to team up with you? A mafia boss? I want us both to stay alive, Calvin corrected. And the only way that happens is if we take Marcus Reed and his crew down before they come for us. Us? There is no us. I'm a police detective. You're a criminal. We're not partners. We are now. Tamara tried to sit up, wincing at the pain. I've spent years trying to put people like you in prison. And I've spent years staying out of it, Calvin shot back. But right now, neither of us has the luxury of playing by the rules. Marcus thinks you're dead. That gives us an advantage, but only if we move fast. Tamara's mind spun. He was right. God help her, he was right. If she went back to the precinct now, Marcus would finish the job. And if she disappeared entirely, he'd win. "What do you want in exchange?" she asked finally. "Excuse me? You don't do anything for free, so what do you want? Immunity? A deal?" Calvin smiled faintly. "I want Marcus Reed in a cell, same as you." "Why?" "Because he's a liability. I've been paying corrupt cops for years, but I always controlled the relationship. Now they're trying to kill people to cover their tracks. That's sloppy. That's dangerous. And I don't do business with people I can't trust." Tamara studied him. "You really didn't know Marcus was on your payroll?" "Like I said, intermediaries. But I've got records, video footage, audio recordings, every transaction, every meeting, every dirty cop I've ever paid. I never trusted them, so I kept receipts." Tamara's eyes widened. "You've been recording everything?" "Insurance policy. That's evidence. That's enough to bring down half the department." "Exactly. Which is why Marcus wants you dead, and why he'll want me dead the second he finds out I've been documenting everything." Tamara was quiet for a long moment. "If I do this," she said slowly, "I need your word that you won't destroy evidence. You won't interfere with the investigation. And when this is over, you turn yourself in." Calvin laughed. "You're negotiating?" "I'm a cop. It's what I do." "Fair enough, but I'm not turning myself in. I'll give you Marcus Reed, his crew, and every dirty cop I've got on record. But I walk. That's not how justice works." "Then we don't have a deal." Tamara glared at him. She hated this, hated him, hated that he was her only option. "Fine," she said through gritted teeth. "But if you double-cross me, you'll arrest me. I know." Calvin extended his hand. Tamara hesitated, then shook it. "So, what's the plan?" she asked. Calvin pulled out his phone and brought up a folder. "First, we need to figure out who else is involved. I've got footage of every cop I've paid off in the last 5 years. You cross-reference with your investigation, we identify the key players. And then? Then we set a trap. For the next 6 hours, Calvin and Tamara worked side by side. Calvin pulled up video files on his laptop, grainy footage of parking lot meetings, manila envelopes changing hands, whispered conversations in dark cars. Tamara's stomach turned as she recognized face after face. Officers she'd worked with. People she'd trusted. "There," she said, pointing at the screen. "That's Officer Benjamin Hayes. He works narcotics. And that's Sergeant Lorraine Foster. She's in evidence management." Calvin made notes. "Anyone else?" Tamara scrolled through more files. "Jesus, there's got to be at least 15 officers here. 15 that I know about. Could be more." Tamara felt sick. "How deep does this go?" "Deeper than you think. Check this out." Calvin opened another file. This one showed a restaurant, upscale, downtown. A man in a suit sat at a corner table, shaking hands with Marcus Reed. "That's Deputy Mayor Alan Cross," Tamara breathed. "And this one," Calvin said, opening another video. "City Councilman Peter Gaines, and here, Judge Raymond Torres." Tamara's hands trembled. "It's not just the police, it's the whole damn city. Bingo. How do we take them all down?" Calvin closed the laptop. "We need to go public. If we try to do this through official channels, they'll bury it. But if we expose everything at once, force the FBI to step in, they won't be able to cover it up. That's risky. Everything about this is risky." Tamara nodded slowly. Okay, but we need more than videos. We need testimony. We need someone on the inside to turn. You think any of these guys will flip? Maybe, if we can find the weakest link. Calvin thought for a moment. Officer Hayes, the narcotics guy. He's young, only been on the force for 3 years, and in the videos he always looks nervous. Tamara nodded. He might crack if we pressure him. Then let's find him. But here's the problem. How do you track down a dirty cop without tipping off the entire corrupt network? And what happens when Marcus Reed realizes Tamara is still breathing? Buckle up, because this is about to get intense. Finding Officer Benjamin Hayes wasn't hard. What was hard was getting to him without alerting Marcus Reed and his crew. Calvin had connections, street-level informants, hackers, people who owed him favors. Within 2 hours, they had Hayes's location, a dive bar on the south side, off-duty, drinking alone. This is our shot, Tamara said. If we can flip him, we've got corroboration. His testimony, plus your recordings? That's enough for the feds. Calvin loaded a handgun and tucked it into his waistband. And if he doesn't cooperate, we make him. They arrived at the bar just after midnight. It was the kind of place where nobody asked questions. Dim lighting, chipped bar stools, a jukebox playing old country songs. Benjamin Hayes sat at the far end of the bar, nursing a whiskey. Calvin and Tamara slid onto the stools on either side of him. Hayes glanced up and froze when he saw Tamara. Kelly? His voice was barely a whisper. But you're dead. Disappointed? Tamara asked coldly. Hayes's eyes darted toward the door. Calvin's hand shot out, gripping his wrist. Don't even think about running, Calvin said quietly. Hayes's face went pale. Who are you? Someone you've been taking money from, Calvin said. Indirectly. Hayes's breath quickened. I don't know what you're talking about. Cut the crap, Benjamin, Tamara said. I know you're part of Marcus Reed's crew. I know you've been taking bribes. And I know you were there the night they tried to kill me. I wasn't, Hayes stammered. Lie to me again, Tamara said, her voice ice, and I'll make sure you go down with the rest of them. Hayes's hands shook. Look, I didn't want any part of this. Reed approached me 2 years ago, said it was easy money, just looked the other way sometimes. Let a few shipments slide. I needed the cash. My wife was pregnant. Medical bills were piling up. I don't care about your sob story, Tamara cut him off. I care about evidence. You're going to testify against Marcus Reed and everyone involved. Are you insane? Hayes hissed. If I do that, I'm dead. My family's dead. If you don't, Calvin said, you're going to prison for attempted murder. Because that's what this is now. You were there when they shot Detective Kelly. That makes you an accomplice. I didn't shoot her, Hayes insisted. I swear. I was just in the car. I didn't know they were going to. Then prove it, Tamara said. Testify. Give us names, dates, locations. Help us take them down. Hayes's eyes filled with tears. I can't. Calvin leaned in. You can, and you will. Because if you don't, I'll make sure Marcus Reed finds out you've been talking to us. And we both know what he does to rats. Hayes's face crumpled. You're bluffing. Try me. A long, tense silence filled the air. Finally, Hayes broke. Okay, he whispered. Okay, I'll do it. But you have to protect my family. Done, Tamara said. You're coming with us. Now. They brought Hayes back to the safe house. Lowe wasn't thrilled about having 2 cops on the premises now, but Calvin shut him down with a look. "Talk," Tamara ordered once they were inside. Hayes sat at the table, head in his hands. "Reed runs everything. He's got at least 12 officers in his pocket. Narcotics, patrol, evidence. They move product, skim evidence, take bribes from dealers and organized crime." "Who else is involved?" Calvin asked. "Sergeant Foster in evidence management, Lieutenant Gary Brennan in patrol, Detective Julia Santos in vice, and Captain Harper's deputy, Commander Neil Ortiz." Tamara's heart sank. "Ortiz, he's second in command." "Yeah, he's been covering for Reed for years." "What about Captain Harper?" Tamara asked. "Is she involved?" Hayes shook his head. "No, she's clean. But Reed's been feeding her false reports for months. She doesn't know half of what's going on." Calvin crossed his arms. "What about the deputy mayor? City officials?" "Reed meets with Deputy Mayor Cross once a month. I don't know what they talk about, but money changes hands. Same with Councilman Gaines and Judge Torres." Tamara felt her stomach churn. This was bigger than she'd thought. Way bigger. "We need to record your testimony," she said. "Everything. On camera." Hayes nodded weakly. "Okay." For the next hour, Hayes talked. Calvin recorded everything on video. Names, dates, locations, amounts of money. It was damning, comprehensive, undeniable. When they finished, Tamara exhaled slowly. "This is it," she said. "This is enough to bring them all down." Calvin saved the video file. "Now, we just need to get it to the right people." "The FBI," Tamara said. "We bypassed the local PD entirely." "Agreed." But before they could make another move, Lowe burst into the room, his face tense. "Boss, we've got a problem." "What?" "Marcus Reed. He's here." Calvin's blood ran cold. "What?" "He's outside, with 6 other officers, armed." Tamara cursed. "How did he find us?" Hayes's face went pale. "Oh God, oh God! My phone! They must have been tracking my phone." Calvin grabbed him by the collar. "You idiot! I didn't know, I swear." "Doesn't matter now," Lowe said. "They're surrounding the building." Calvin released Hayes and turned to Tamara. "Can you fight?" She touched her bandaged shoulder. "I can try." "Good, because we're about to." Marcus Reed just found them. A shootout is about to explode. Will Calvin and Tamara survive? Or is this where their alliance ends in blood? Don't go anywhere. The next chapter is pure adrenaline. Marcus Reed's voice boomed through a megaphone outside the warehouse. "Calvin Brown, we know you're in there. Send out Detective Kelly, and we'll let you walk." Calvin peered through a window. 7 men in tactical gear, weapons drawn. Marcus stood in the center, smug and confident. "Liar," Tamara muttered beside him. "He's not letting anyone walk." "I know." Lowe appeared with a duffel bag full of weapons. "We've got rifles, handguns, and 1 grenade. Not great odds." Calvin grabbed an AR-15 and checked the magazine. "We don't need great odds. We just need to hold them off long enough for backup." "Backup?" Tamara asked. "From who?" Calvin pulled out his phone. "The FBI." "You have a contact in the FBI?" "Not exactly, but I'm about to." Calvin dialed a number, Agent Patricia Owens, the FBI agent who'd been investigating his organization for 2 years. She'd been trying to get close to him for months. Now he was handing her the case of a lifetime. "Agent Owens," her voice answered, sharp and suspicious. "Who is this?" "Calvin Brown." Silence. "You've got my attention," she said finally. Good, because in about 5 minutes, corrupt cops are going to storm my location and try to kill me and Detective Tamara Kelly. I've got evidence of massive police corruption. Officers, city officials, judges, all on video. But only if you get here before they kill us. Where are you? Calvin rattled off the address. I'm 15 minutes out, Owens said. Can you hold? We're about to find out. Calvin hung up and turned to Tamara. FBI's on the way. We just need to survive. Easier said than done. Outside, Marcus's patience ran out. Last chance, Brown! Calvin grabbed the megaphone from Lowe and shouted back. Go to hell, Reed! Marcus's face twisted with rage. Fine! We do this the hard way! Take positions! Calvin barked. His men scrambled. Lowe upstairs with a rifle, 2 others covering the side entrances. Tamara and Calvin took the main floor, weapons ready. The first shot shattered a window. Then all hell broke loose. Gunfire erupted from every direction. Calvin returned fire, taking cover behind a steel support beam. Tamara crouched behind a stack of crates, firing methodically. Side door! Lowe shouted from upstairs. One of Marcus's men breached the side entrance. Calvin spun and fired, 3 shots. The officer went down. They're coming through the back! Another of Calvin's men yelled. Calvin cursed. They were being flanked. Tamara fired at the windows, keeping Marcus's team pinned. We can't hold this. We have to. Another officer breached the back. Calvin's man engaged close-quarters combat. Fists, gunshots, chaos. Tamara moved toward the back to help, and gasped as pain flared in her shoulder. Her stitches were tearing. Tamara! Calvin shouted. I'm fine! She lied, firing again. But she wasn't fine. Blood seeped through her bandage. Calvin saw it. Fall back! Everyone fall back to the center! They regrouped in the middle of the warehouse, surrounded, outnumbered, running out of ammunition. Marcus's voice called out, You're done, Brown! Give up! Calvin looked at Tamara. Her face was pale, but her eyes were fierce. I'm not giving up, she said. Neither am I. And then, sirens. Lots of them. Marcus heard it too. His expression shifted from triumph to panic. Calvin allowed himself a grim smile. Sounds like our backup just arrived. 30 seconds later, the warehouse was flooded with FBI agents. Weapons down! FBI! Marcus's men hesitated. Then one by one they dropped their guns. Agent Patricia Owens strode in, flanked by a dozen armed agents. Her sharp eyes took in the scene. Blood, bullet holes, bodies on the floor. Calvin Brown, she said. We need to talk. Calvin lowered his weapon. I've got something better than talk, Agent. I've got evidence. Owens raised an eyebrow. Show me. Calvin pulled out his laptop and handed it over. Videos, audio, financial records, everything you need to bring down a corruption ring that spans the police department, city hall, and the courts. Owens opened the files, and her expression hardened. Jesus, she muttered. And this, Tamara added, stepping forward despite her injury, Officer Benjamin Hayes. He's willing to testify. Hayes, who'd been cowering in the corner, nodded shakily. Owens looked at Marcus Reed, whose face had gone ashen. Detective Marcus Reed, she said, you're under arrest. You can't do this, Marcus snarled. I'm a decorated officer. You're a criminal, Owens said flatly. Take him. 2 agents hauled Marcus away, his shouts echoing through the warehouse. Owens turned back to Calvin. You're coming with me, too. I figured. But, she added, her tone softening slightly, if this evidence checks out, we'll talk about a deal. Calvin nodded. Tamara stepped forward. Agent Owens, Calvin saved my life. He could have walked away, but he didn't. That has to count for something. Owens studied them both. We'll see. The FBI just took over. Marcus Reed is in cuffs. But what happens to Calvin? And what comes next for Tamara? The final chapters are going to leave you speechless. Stay with me. 3 days later, the city exploded. News vans camped outside police headquarters. Headlines screamed corruption. Social media erupted. The story was everywhere. Massive police corruption scandal exposed. 12 officers arrested. Deputy mayor linked to organized crime. FBI seizes evidence in largest takedown in city history. Tamara watched the news from her hospital bed. The bullet wound in her shoulder had needed surgery, and doctors ordered her to stay for observation. Captain Diane Harper appeared on the screen, looking exhausted and furious. I want to be clear, Harper said into the microphones. The actions of these officers do not represent this department. We will cooperate fully with the FBI investigation. Those responsible will be held accountable. Tamara felt a mix of emotions, vindication, anger, sadness. A knock at the door pulled her attention. Come in. Agent Patricia Owens stepped inside, carrying a folder. Detective Kelly, how are you feeling? Like I got shot twice, Tamara said dryly. But alive. Thanks to Calvin Brown. Owens nodded. About that. We've finished verifying the evidence he provided. It's legitimate. All of it. 12 officers, 3 city officials, 2 judges, and a deputy mayor. The prosecutions are moving forward. And Calvin? Owens hesitated. That's complicated. Tamara sat up straighter, wincing. What does that mean? It means Calvin Brown is a criminal. He runs an illegal organization. He's guilty of racketeering, extortion, bribery, the list goes on. But his cooperation has been invaluable. Without his evidence and testimony, we wouldn't have been able to build these cases. So the U.S. attorney is offering him a deal. What kind of deal? He testifies against everyone involved. In exchange, we drop the most serious charges. He'll plead guilty to lesser offenses, serve a reduced sentence, probably 5 years. Tamara frowned. He deserves more than that. Maybe. But justice isn't always clean, Detective. Sometimes it's about getting the bigger fish. Tamara looked away. Can I see him? Owens raised an eyebrow. Well, because I owe him my life, and I want to hear what he has to say. Owens considered this, then nodded. I'll arrange it. The next day, Tamara was escorted to a federal holding facility. Calvin sat in an interrogation room, hands cuffed to the table. He looked tired but calm. When Tamara entered, he offered a faint smile. Detective Kelly, you look better. You look worse. He laughed softly. Prison orange isn't my color. Tamara sat down across from him. For a moment, neither spoke. Why did you do it? She asked finally. Save you? All of it. You could have killed me in that alley. You could have turned me over to Marcus. You could have destroyed the evidence and walked away. But you didn't. Calvin was quiet for a long time. I told you about my sister, he said finally. What I didn't tell you is that after she died, I spent years trying to destroy the people who killed her. I went after the dealers, the dirty cops. I became the very thing I hated. And somewhere along the way, I forgot why I started. He looked up at her. Then I found you in that alley. And for the first time in 15 years, I had a choice. I could walk away and keep being the monster. Or I could do something that actually mattered. Tamara's throat tightened. "You're not a monster, Calvin." "I've done terrible things, Tamara." "I know. But you also did something good. You saved my life. And you helped take down one of the most corrupt networks this city has ever seen." Calvin smiled sadly. "Doesn't change what I am. Maybe not, but it's a start." Silence settled between them. "What's going to happen to you?" Tamara asked. 5 years, federal prison. Could be worse." "And after?" "After?" Calvin shrugged. "I don't know. Maybe I'll actually try being a decent person." Tamara reached across the table, ignoring the guard's warning glance, and placed her hand over his. "Thank you," she said softly. "For everything." Calvin nodded. "Take care of yourself, detective. You too." 6 months later, Tamara Kelly stood outside the federal courthouse, watching as news crews packed up their equipment. The trial was over. Marcus Reed, life in prison without parole. Commander Neil Ortiz, 25 years. Sergeant Lorraine Foster, 20 years. Deputy Mayor Alan Cross, 18 years. 12 officers convicted. 3 city officials removed from office. 2 judges disbarred and sentenced. It was the biggest corruption scandal in the city's history, and Tamara had been at the center of it. Captain Harper approached, looking older but relieved. "Kelly, good work in there." "Thank you, Captain. I want you to know the department owes you an apology. You were right, and we failed you." Tamara nodded. "I appreciate that." "There's something else." Harper handed her an envelope. "You're being promoted, Detective First Grade, and you're being transferred to the Anti-Corruption Task Force, if you want it." Tamara opened the envelope, staring at the official letter. "I want it," she said. Harper smiled. "Good. We need people like you." As Harper walked away, Tamara felt a presence beside her. Agent Patricia Owens. "Detective Kelly, congratulations." "Agent Owens, here to gloat?" Owens smirked. "Actually, I'm here to deliver a message." "From who?" "Calvin Brown." Tamara's heart skipped. "What about him?" "He's been a model prisoner, testifying, cooperating, following every rule. The judge just approved his sentence reduction. He'll be out in 3 years instead of 5. Tamara exhaled slowly. "That's good." "He also wanted me to give you this." Owens handed her a folded piece of paper. Tamara unfolded it. Calvin's handwriting, neat, precise. "Detective Kelly, by the time you read this, the trial will be over. Justice will have been served, or something close to it. I've had a lot of time to think in here about my choices. My sister, you. You asked me once why I saved you. The truth is, I didn't just save you. You saved me, too. For 15 years, I was drowning, and I didn't even know it. But when I found you in that alley, something inside me woke up. You reminded me that there's still good in this world worth fighting for. So thank you. For trusting me when you had every reason not to. For believing I could be more than what I was. I don't know what happens when I get out, but I know I won't go back to the life I had before. Maybe someday, if you're ever in the area, we can grab coffee. As civilians. No badges, no handcuffs. Just 2 people who survived something impossible together. Take care of yourself, Detective. Calvin. Tamara folded the letter carefully and tucked it into her jacket. Agent Owens watched her. You going to take him up on that coffee? Tamara smiled faintly. Maybe. He's a good man, Kelly, underneath all the bad decisions. I know. Owens nodded and walked away, leaving Tamara alone on the courthouse steps. She looked up at the sky, clear, blue, endless. For the first time in months, she felt something she hadn't felt in a long time. Hope. If you loved this story, subscribe now. Hit that like button, drop a comment telling me what you thought, and turn on notifications so you never miss another story like this. What should I write next? Mafia romance? Betrayal thriller? Let me know in the comments.